Joining us now, Ralph Nader, consumer advocate and author of How the Rats Reformed the Congress. Thanks so much for joining us. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you, Wilfred.
My first question overall is, do you support a wealth tax? Does that make sense to you?
Well, there already is a wealth tax on real estate, as you know. It falls disproportionately on middle-income people. This is a wealth tax on other forms of assets. It'll be contested in the courts, but I think it's well done for Elizabeth Warren to say that, because you had a huge accumulation of wealth, often making money from money, speculation on Wall Street, rather than invested in productive enterprise. And our tax system on corporations is so low historically, Wilfred, that I really would just call it a partial restoration of what the taxes were on the very rich and the corporate in the Eisenhower years in the 1950s.
But I understand the argument that the wealthy should pay more. Is Warren's version of a wealth tax, an annually levied wealth tax based often on unrealized gains, the way to do it? Or is a better way to do it to increase things like income taxes or make capital gains tax rates higher and more comparable to income tax rates?
Well, I think it's easier to get through Congress to do a sharper progressive tax, a sharper estate tax, and a sharper tax on realized capital gains. In other words, capital gains, as Ronald Reagan said, should be taxed like ordinary income. Why should it be special for people who have a lot of capital gains? And finally, I think she should emphasize more a tax on Wall Street transactions. We have to pay 6, 7, 8% sales tax in the United States. You go into a store, but if someone buys $100 million of Exxon derivatives or Exxon stock, they don't pay any sales tax. There was a sales tax on Wall Street transactions going back to the Civil War, and there was one that continued until 1964 or so. So it's not that it's a brand new precedent. Japan has it, and some other countries have it. It's a good way to dampen down excessive speculation, and that money can be used for tuition-free education, health care, child assistance, other things that Warren and Sanders want.
So I know, obviously, you're a crusader for a number of social issues. Do you then ultimately believe that the most ultra-wealthy of us should give back in this way by being taxed in this way? I know you wrote a book, Only the Super Rich Can Save Us. Do you really believe that that's their duty and they should do it through a wealth tax of this sorts?
Well, definitely. Warren Buffett and Lawrence Fink of Blackstone and Yvon Chouinard of Patagonia and others have talked about a reset in terms of corporate response and the response to the wealthy. But look after years of political campaign cash and sending their candidates into high office, the super rich have got huge tax escapes. They have huge subsidies, bailouts, giveaways, Wall Street, General Motors. They have huge antitrust protection, monopolistic prices. They've stalled or frozen wages. These are trillions and trillions of dollars that come from people who work hard every day but have not received what they should have received given their earned effort. So this is like a restoration of fair play. And let me tell you, you've heard the old saying, there's always a party before the party's over. And some good guys in Wall Street and some of the more responsible corporate executives know they're pushing that envelope too far in the face of the American people. And that's why there are huge polls supporting a lot of Sanders and Warren's measures, and they include quite a few conservative voters. So you can't have 65, 70, 75% vote for cracking down on corporate abuses, for a living wage, for universal health care, unless you have quite a bit of conservative voters as well.
Right, but corporate abuses are different from the majority of corporate practice, I would argue. Ralph, switching focus to Boeing. Have you been encouraged by some of the further concessions they've made in the last month or two, further apologies they've made, and indeed stripping the CEO of the chairman's title? Is that enough for you?
No, not at all. They have a hardware defect in terms of engine overloads of old fuselage, unlike their competitor, the Airbus 320neo. and they try to fix it with a complicated software they've been revising, glitching, stitching now for months. You don't do a software fix for a hardware defect. That's not a good idea. So they're on the wrong track for the future well-being of Boeing. I've really asked for the CEO and the Boeing board of directors. They've got such a stake in what happened, and they're not willing to really change. They should just step down. Boeing needs a completely new team. And if Boeing tries to transfer those cases to Indonesian courts or Ethiopian courts, that'll be the second worst mistake they've ever made in the last 10 years. The first one being the 737 MAX. Axe the MAX. And the airlines ought to worry. They don't get a free crash due to the instability of the 737 MAX, pointed out by Captain Sullenberger in House testimony in June and many other aerospace experts. There's a now division between the future well-being of a re-engineered Boeing Corporation and the financial madness of the Boeing bosses who brought this company to the state of crisis that it now is in.